Hello. Let's make sure I got it up here. Instagram's on?
I think so.
Okay. Good.
I'm checking the Wi-Fi connection. Yep. People are joining, so I think I'm on.
Awesome. Hello, can you guys hear me? Can you guys see me? Hi, Wendy. Hi, Jackie. Awesome. Can you guys hear me okay? Perfect. All right, so we'll just wait a couple minutes. Wait for everybody to get on here. I have my iPad down here, so I'm just making sure that all my angles and everything is good.
Hello, everybody on Instagram.
Hi, Instagram. Yeah, remember you guys can watch on Instagram too if you prefer that. Both are great. Hi, Jasmine. Hi, Kelly. Hey, Tina. Awesome. Okay. Perfect. Everybody got all their stuff ready? Who's going to be following along today? Is anybody going to? We're planning to do it afterwards. I love seeing your pictures. I saw a couple I just shared on my Instagram. A couple people who I know are all set up and ready to go. It's so exciting. I'm really, really excited for this one. I think it's going to be fun. They've all been fun so far, but I think this one's going to be really cool to see everybody's pieces. Hi, Sharon. Jackie, you're going to make yours afterwards? Awesome. Hi, Josie. All right. Fantastic. So I'm just going to wait about 5 minutes or so. Oh, thank you, Carly. That one's on?
Yep.
Awesome. Jasmine, you're going to be following along? That is awesome. Hey, Kim. Cool, yeah, I have my sculpture back here. For anybody who has not seen it yet, that's what we're going to be doing today. I'm going to raise it a little bit higher for Instagram so they can see it back there too. So we're going to be doing some, this is basically like a showpiece. So we're going to be doing some abstract shapes, talk about structure and support, and then we're going to make our beautiful, delicate, transparent Isomalt butterflies. Super, super realistic. Awesome. I'm going to carefully set him back down here.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, Stephanie. Hello to Boston, Evelyn. It's been so long since we've been there. Oh my gosh. I'm going to be using a 6-inch cake pan. You could go 6-inch or you could go a little smaller, but I wouldn't go any bigger. But 6-inch is what I'm going to use. Does anybody have any questions about the supply list or anything like that while we get started? Please feel free to ask. Once we get started, Mom and Dad are going to be reading all the questions once I tilt my phone down. So if you have any questions throughout the demo, I have my iPad down here set up too to read through any comments, but sometimes it's easier once I'm working for them to just read them to me so I can answer while I work.
Maria says hi from Massachusetts.
Hi, Maria.
Mary Corman from Dominican Republic.
Hi. Yeah, thanks guys for coming on Instagram too. Awesome. We'll get started here in just a second. I'm going to make sure my Isomalt is all heated. Beautiful.
Can they hear the rain?
I don't know. Can you guys hear the rain? We probably can't. It's not super heavy right now, but it started just the minute I was about to go live, so.
Luckily there's no skylights in here.
Yeah, there's no skylights in here, so it's not too loud. Only, it's not thundering yet. Hopefully it won't. Alright, so we will go ahead and get started here. Okay, so yeah, we're going to be doing our Isomalt showpiece today. I am super, super excited for this project. Like I said, Mom and Dad are here too. Say hi, guys.
Hello.
So if you have any questions, please make sure to just comment them, and then they will read them off as we go. Or of course, if you're watching this at a later date, you're welcome to comment and I'll go back through, or you can just message me directly here on Facebook or on Instagram. I'm always happy to answer questions. So whenever you guys have questions, definitely ask and we'll go through. And yeah, I'm just going to be showing you step by step. I'll show you guys the sculpture again for anyone who just got here. This is what we are going to be making today. So I'm going to show you how to do these beautiful etchings, these plumeria flowers inside the Isomalt, as well as these delicate butterflies, and then we're going to do a little mini showpiece. So I'll talk about support and structure and balance and all of that fun stuff.
So Jennifer wants to know if we're doing it at the same time, should they go ahead and start melting their Isomalt?
Yes, you can go ahead and start melting your Isomalt. So that is what I pre-melted mine just so that I would have it ready, but you can start now if you haven't. We are going to be using Simi Isomalt today, of course. So this is pre-cooked, ready to use. We're starting with our yellow. So anyone who's following along at home, start with your yellow, go ahead and melt that down for 30 seconds and then 15-second intervals until it's a liquid. Or if you're using what you have at home, you can mix any color you want into it. I just, of course, really like yellow, so you can definitely go ahead and heat that until it is a liquid. Because this is pre-cooked, there's no temperatures, no recipes, nothing. Just melt it down until it's a liquid. Now remember to be very, very careful. Wear your gloves when working with Isomalt because it is super, super hot. So make sure that you are wearing your gloves to protect your hands and don't stick your finger in it or anything like that. Okay, so I'm gonna tilt the camera down, so just give me 1 second, guys, while I position this. Let's see, there we go. So it just may take me a second to get the right positioning to make sure you guys can see everything, so.
Sidney, Sue'd like to know, should they melt the entire bag?
Yes, go ahead and melt the whole bag of Isomalt for the yellow and when we go to do the clear as well. We're going to melt everything we got. We got big pieces today.
Sandy asks, how long can you keep an Isomalt piece?
You can keep an Isomalt piece. Isomalt doesn't go bad. It would just, you want to spray it with a clear edible glaze, which I'm going to be talking about in the end. And if you spray it with the glaze, depending on your humidity level, it can last for weeks or even months. Alright, I'm just going to scoot my whole Archon mount here back. And then get this nice and straight for you guys.
While they're melting.
Yeah, while you guys are melting, go ahead and do that while I just get this adjusted. Alright, so I'm just going to let my iPad catch up for just a second so that I can make sure that it's all good.
Because the words.
Yeah, the words, if you're watching on your phone, are going to be covering up a lot of it, so I just want to make sure.
But they can turn it sideways.
Let's see, we can go this way. Scoot this guy up. Here, let's move these out of the way.
If they turn their phone sideways, it'll be alright.
If you turn your phone sideways, okay, cool. If the words are covering up too much of the screen, just turn your phone sideways. And we should be good.
Jackie says that she has flowers she made more than a year ago and they're still great.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I have a whole bunch of pieces that are years old and they may get a little cloudy, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to look bad. Alright.
Sugar Baker Confections asks, will your live be accessible when it's done if we can't watch now?
Yes, if you can't watch now or you can't watch the whole thing, it will absolutely be replayed. So it will be on my Facebook page that you can replay it whenever you want. And I also am uploading them onto my YouTube channel a couple days or a week afterwards, whenever I can, just to have it really easy to go back and replay. So check my YouTube channel. The last two that I've done are on there, and then this one should be up at some point after this. But you can always go just immediately onto my Facebook afterwards and do it. Okay. Perfect. So we are going to go ahead, like I said, just melt down your Isomalt. So I'm going to have my Isomalt, bring it to a boil. So remember, you want it nice and hot to work with. Okay, I'm going to reheat this just a tiny bit because it got thick while I was waiting here.
Can you put Isomalt piece inside an acrylic box to last for years?
You can, yeah. If it's airtight, that's even better because the moisture is what can make the Isomalt a little bit cloudy. So if it's airtight, that's the absolute best situation for it to be in. Alright, so I'm just going to set this over here. I'm going to be pouring, not on my silicone mat, I'm going to be pouring onto my nonstick baking liner sheet. So this is just a coated Teflon sheet. This is the one that is on our website. If you've done my live playdates in the past, you may have one of these from when we did the shaker cookie, the first one that I did. So you can use that, or you can use a silicone mat. These just don't bubble up like the silicone mats can sometimes. If you don't have either of those, you can go ahead and use a piece of foil, but make sure that you grease it with some cooking spray first, and then just wipe it down with a paper towel to lay your forms on. You just want something that the Isomalt is going to release from. So I'm going to grab my Isomalt here. Perfect. If your Isomalt is boiling when it comes out of the microwave, you want to make sure to let it settle. So all of the bubbles that are rising and popping and boiling, you want to make sure that you let those settle and cool for just a minute before you pour it, and then you're going to pour. So these are what we're using to make our first structure piece. So these are Simi flex forms, and they're basically just tubes of silicone that are going to be able to be shaped in any shape you want. So potentially you can change this up if you want to do something a little bit different, but I just did, since there's only going to be one standing piece for this, I wanted it something that would be fairly balanced. So I'm just going to do a big crescent. And then these are silicone inserts. So basically what they're going to do is they're going to create that glass etching inside. So this is our really pretty plumeria flower one. Plumerias are one of my absolute favorite flowers. So that is what I'm going to be using for this. We have a whole bunch of different ones on our website, but this is definitely my favorite. So I'm just going to position these. You want to try not to get them touching the edge, but it's okay if they are a little bit. Okay, so you see how I just have those laid out. Now remember, if you're using the Teflon mat or the silicone mat, you don't have to grease any of these. You just want to pour them right on, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm just pouring enough to cover the bottom, so you see how my Isomalt is nice and flat now. It's not boiling or bubbling. That's when it's ready to use. So I'm just going to pour in enough to coat, and you see how I'm pouring directly on top of those inserts. Now I can go ahead and just cover over top of those. I'm going to go out to this point here. You could also, instead of covering the inserts, you can go up to them. So see how on this side, I just let the Isomalt run up to it, and I could do that on the opposite side, and then it would create a hole that is cut out. So with like our circle ones and our little hearts, sometimes that's really nice, but I'm just going to go ahead and cover them up because I want all that detail of the flower. But it does give you some more options. Alright, so see how I just poured enough. If you want the points to be a little sharper, you can go ahead and take your little silicone tool or a toothpick or a skewer and just pull that into the points a little more. It's okay if it gets a little rough because we can clean that up later with the torch. But I'm just going to pull that.
Sid, I got a couple questions.
Yes.
Jackie Curtis asked, do the strips just create a seal when they touch together?
They do, yes. They're silicone, so when they touch the mat that you're on or they touch together, they're going to stay in place. And so that's all I'm doing. I mean, sometimes if I really, really curl them and they want to kind of move and pop out, I'll just support them with like a mold or something heavy. You know, if I had like this bottle, I could set that over here just to keep it from moving. But generally, I mean, you can see these are not going anywhere right now. So you're not going to have to do anything.
And Diana wants to know, does it matter what side of the FlexForm mold is facing it?
It doesn't. I like to use the flat edge personally, so you can see that on the bottom of them they're flat, and then on the top they're rounded. You can use the rounded side. It's just going to give you almost more of like a beveled or a smooth rounded edge, but I like to use the flat edge for modern pieces like this, so I did turn it so that the flat sides are inwards touching the Isomalt, if that makes sense. Okay, I see a couple little bubbles here, so I'm just going to lightly pop those with my torch. Okay, so just any bubbles that rose to the surface. And then I see that there's a couple little spots where the inserts are kind of poking through. I didn't pour quite enough Isomalt over those, so I'm just going to cover more over it. Isomalt pours together really, really easily. Even if this had already cooled down, the first piece that I poured, and I wanted to add more, it will all melt into each other, so I could pour more over top. Worst comes to worst, if it is super, super cool already and you try and pour more and you see a little seam, you can just very lightly torch over those seams while it's still all kind of warm, and it'll all melt together. So we're going to go ahead and let this cool for about 20 minutes or so. We want these to be nice and solid, so it does depend on your temperature of your room. I don't like to put these in the fridge or the freezer, so I'm going to make sure that it is just at room temperature, and I'm going to just slide this over so it's out of our way, and we will come back to it. Okay? Yeah, I'm going to put, just for time's sake, so you guys don't have to wait too long, I'm going to put my little fan on it just to speed that up slightly. But you don't have to do that. It's an optional step. I'm going to reheat my clear now so we can pour our base at the same time. Alright, so for the base, we're going to be using a pan. So this is just a metal cake pan. Like I said, with metal, or if you were pouring on foil, same thing. We do have to grease these. So I'm going to put a little bit of cooking spray. Make sure that it's a cooking oil spray. It's not the baking spray. I know this is Bake Easy, but it does not have that powder in it. It doesn't have that flour inside of it. It's just an oil. So make sure that you have the oil. It could be canola oil, vegetable oil. It doesn't matter what kind of oil it is. You do want to just spread it around though to make sure it's a nice even coat and it goes up the sides a little bit. Alright, so give my Isomalt just another minute. And then we're going to do the exact same thing. We're just going to pour enough to cover over the bottom. Now, like I said, we're melting all of your Isomalt that you got, but we still need a little bit of this clear to pour our butterflies later. So make sure when you're pouring your base that you don't pour too much of the clear. You still want to have some left over so that we can do our butterflies here in a little bit. So make sure, pour your base so that it's just enough to cover the bottom, but don't pour all of your Isomalt in it. You want to leave some out. You could also use a greased metal cookie cutter on a mat. It's kind of the same way we did the flex forms. Give this another zap. Alright, so I just greased that, spread it out with the paper towel to make sure that it's nice and coated. And I'm just popping my Isomalt back in the microwave until it is a nice liquid.
Might not be quite centered.
Not quite centered. Pull this way. There we go.
Everyone shout out if you can't see something.
Yeah, if I go out of the shot or the screen with something, just let me know. So you see how I brought it to a nice boil, so I'm just going to let that cool for just a minute before we pour it in. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and write them in the chat. Perfect. Hi, Debbie. Awesome. Hi, Caroline. Okay, so you can see those bubbles dissipating. Just going to give it one more second. Oh yeah, that looks much more centered now. Thank you. I don't know why my comments keep disappearing. Maybe that's a new feature. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and pour, but remember not to pour all of this. You still want to have some clear left over, so I'm just going to pour just enough to cover over the bottom.
What size is the cake pan?
The cake pan is 6 inches. You could go a little smaller than that, but I wouldn't really go too much bigger. Now remember, metal conducts heat, so this pan is going to get just as hot as the Isomalt that you just poured inside of it. So don't touch it if you don't have gloves or oven mitts, because right now it is super, super, super hot. Add a little bit more. Okay, and then I'm going to take my torch and do the same thing. Any little bubbles that I see on the top, we're just going to pop those. Luckily, hot air rises, right? So all those bubbles are going to rise to the surface, and you can just pop them. Perfect. And then we will leave that to cool as well for about 20 minutes, just like with our flex form piece, and we will make our butterflies in the meantime. Okay? So I'm just going to slide him over here to the side. Again, be careful because the metal is super hot. Let me use a couple paper towels here as oven mitts.
Oh no, Sue says her torch won't work.
Oh no! Bad timing, torch. I know, torches are finicky. Perfect.
Don't worry, it'll be here.
Yes, this is totally replayable. You can go at your own pace. If you just want to watch it all first and then go back, it's totally, totally fine. Sometimes I like to watch demos and classes first and just kind of get an idea of what we're doing and where we're going, and then I'll go back and kind of be able to pause with each step until I catch up.
Caroline would like to know, can you use the silicone mat in the oven for baking cookies?
Yes, you absolutely can. Yeah, these are just baking mats, so you can use them for baking, you can use them for Isomalt work, chocolate work, anything that you want to. They're great.
Oh, Sue wanted to know, does the flour spray work or no? the spray with flour?
No, you don't want to use the cooking spray with the flour in it because it'll mix with the Isomalt and it'll get kind of clumpy and chunky. So just make sure it's just oil. I read the ingredients on this one and it just has oil. There's no particles or anything else in it. It's just straight oil. Okay, so while those are cooling, we are going to make our butterflies. So if you got our kit, our accessory kit that came with this class that you could get from our website, it has these 2 butterflies. If you're using your transfer sheets you already have, you could use any butterfly design that you want to. You can print out anything. If you haven't seen the Simi Isomalt transfer sheets before, they're basically a type of edible paper, and you can see they're very thin. You can almost see through them, and they are a type of icing paper, but they're not like regular icing sheets. They are made specifically for Isomalt to transfer designs. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to pour the Isomalt on. We're going to let it absorb into the paper for a couple minutes, and then when it's cool, the plastic backing that this is on will peel away, and it leaves the design on the Isomalt. And when the Isomalt absorbs in, it actually makes it translucent and transparent. So it's going to give it a beautiful, beautiful look, and that is what we're going to be using. So they are a product from Icing Images that I helped them kind of formulate for Isomalt, and that is basically going to be what we're going to use. So you can get pre-printed designs. This is one of our designs that I came up with, but you can also, if you have an edible printer, you can get blank sheets, packs of them right from Icing Images, and you can just print your own. So you could do any design, any monogram, any template, and it's going to give you that beautiful transparent look. Now you can also use icing sheets with this as well, just the regular premium Icing Images icing sheets. And their new smart sheets, but remember that that is going to be an opaque background because they're nice thick sheets. They're not going to be see-through, they're going to be white in the background, which is also great. It just depends on what you're doing. So that is what I'm using today. I have the small one and the big one. I have a couple, oh yes.
Oh, what about the wafer paper?
I don't like to use wafer paper because it's not quite strong enough for the Isomalt. So it's good for attaching decorations made out of wafer paper onto Isomalt, but I wouldn't pour the Isomalt directly on. Okay, so I wanted to show you before we get into this too some other different things. So like I said, you can pour, and you can see this is one that I've already done. This is a stained glass design, so I have an example here of one that I poured. So all I did was for windows for cookies, or you can do a form over this as well, but for windows for cookies this is really perfect. And I just have the design, this again, and this one of mine, or you can pick a specific design that you like, or maybe you're making, you're replicating an exact cathedral or an exact church that you want to do. You can, choose their exact images that they have. And then I just baked my cookie, okay? Once it was baked, I set it right on top of my design, poured the Isomalt in, and let it cool, and you can see it just transferred that design. And then I just, decorated it with a little bit of fondant and some texture. But you see how it's perfect. This one, some of them have colors already in them that would show up, but this one is perfect for paint your own. This is one of the examples I did for Icing Images live stream last week of paint your own. So I would just go back with some edible paints, paint on top of that, and you could get really, really cool designs and effects. Alright, so I'm going to pop my Isomalt back in the microwave to re-liquefy it. So if you're following along at home, that leftover clear that you have, you're going to pop it back in. Now if this was not a colored design, like if I was doing that window, you could use colored Isomalt for this and it would just take the colors. But because these have a color already in the pattern, I'm going to go ahead and just use clear so that the colors come out nice and bright.
Sid, are
Yes.
the transfer sheets good to use for chocolate molds?
The transfer sheets are going to be just for high heat, so they work best with Isomalt. It's the same idea as a chocolate transfer sheet where it transfers the design when you pour on it, but these aren't cocoa butter, so the chocolate's not going to be hot enough to transfer it. It will go on, they're just not, since they're see-through, it's not going to be as bright. It's going to be more of like a very subtle print.
More like macarons work better.
Yeah, you could use macarons and meringues and things like that.
Something lighter.
Because they get super hot. Okay, so I brought it back to a boil. I don't want to pour this right away. I want to let that settle really, really well before I pour it onto my butterfly so that the heat does not melt the paper, because if it's boiling hot like this, I never pour it into anything, even silicone molds or anything. You don't want it to be boiling, piping hot. You want to wait for all the bubbles to settle. So not only is that a better texture for pouring, but it's going to get all of the air out and you're going to get crystal clear butterflies. So I'm just going to set this off to the side for a minute. If you guys have any questions.
Joelle says hi from Montreal.
Hi, Joelle. Alright, so you can see already it really doesn't take very long for all those bubbles to start dissipating. Okay, and so you can see that it has, these are a beautiful blue Morpho butterfly, but like I said, you can print your own designs. They do have a little bit of a black border, but we're going to be going back afterwards and painting that a little, just to make it a little bit more intense. But can you imagine, I mean, you could do like business logos, you could do monograms, you could do somebody's face. These work perfect for lollipops. Now, notice that I don't have a mold or a form or anything with me, right? We are going to be pouring these butterflies free-handed, so we're not going to be using a form, and there's two reasons for that. One, I didn't want you guys to have a mold or a form for every single design that you want to do, right? Because that kind of limits you. If you want to do this design, but you don't have something, you know, to put around it to form it, then you can't do it. So it's going to give you a lot more freedom if you do it this way, and it's also going to be a lot thinner and a lot more delicate. So if I pour the Isomalt on and then spread it out into the shape that I want, it's going to be way, way, way more delicate than pouring into a mold that has to kind of run up against an edge, which therefore makes it look very blocky, which is great for some things like structure pieces, but for butterflies we want them as delicate and thin as possible. Okay, so see how my Isomalt just completely settled there? I'm going to start with the big one. Now, like I was talking about before, the Isomalt will melt together no matter how many times you pour it. So you can break this up into sections. You don't have to pour the whole thing at once because it's going to cool very quickly. So I'm just going to break this big butterfly up into 4 sections for each part of the wing. Okay, I'm very, very slowly and carefully going to pour the Isomalt and let it run out a little bit, but not all the way. So you want to pour a little bit less than you think you should.
Shiny side down.
Yes, thank you. Shiny side down. So you can see on the sheets there's a shiny side, that's the plastic, and then there's a matte side, that's the paper. So shiny side face down, otherwise you'll get beautiful clear butterflies if they just come off of the acetate. Okay, we're going to start with one section very, very, very slowly. Isomalt has a lot of surface tension, so it's not going to run all over the place unless you pour too much. But worst comes to worst, if you do pour too much, it's really easy to clean up. So see how I just poured before the edges of the butterfly, and then I'm going to take my silicone tool, or you could use a toothpick or a skewer for this, on its side. You don't want to be stabbing at the piece, you want to go on its side and just brush the surface. And you want to go kind of quick. Of course, this does take a little bit of practice. Practice makes perfect, right? If you don't have enough, you can pour a little bit more over the center and then push that out to the edge. Or you can drip some from your tool if you want to dip your tool back in the Isomalt and drip a little bit extra. Now the cool thing about the paper is the white is going to turn clear once the Isomalt absorbs in. So if you get any over the edge, a lot of the time you won't even see it. But if you do, we can trim it off. So see how once I get that spread out, I'm just going to go back in and push a little bit more. You don't want to scrape the paper, so make sure that you're only pushing the Isomalt across the top surface. It's okay if the shape's not perfect, because again, we can trim and shape as much as we need to. And remember, you can always add more, so don't try and push it too thin to where you're feeling like you're going to scrape the paper. Okay. See, I'm just kind of taking my time. Remember, our Isomalt dries pretty slowly, so you don't have to be too rushed and overwhelmed. You can go in smaller sections too. Okay, so now that I have one half, I'm going to spread it into the second half, so starting at the bottom, just like I did before. The quicker you work, obviously, the better it's going to be, just because it stays nice and liquid, but it just takes practice. But you see how it's not running all over the place. As long as your table is nice and level, and you use enough Isomalt on there. See how I'm just kind of blending the two together in the middle. I'm going to pour my other half. You can see it get more and more transparent. Can you already see how you can see the pattern of the mat underneath? That's because the Isomalt has all melted in to the paper and it's making it see-through.
So vibrant.
Yeah, it makes the colors so much more saturated because it's almost like getting a piece of paper wet. It's going to make them more dark and intense. And just beautiful. I love these. Alright, I'm not going to worry about doing the antenna because that would be super, super tiny. I am going to pour just a little bit. I'm probably going to use my tool just to pour a little bit for his head. So see how I'm just dripping that in. Perfect. Okay, I could go back and kind of tweak it if I need to. You can't reheat this with the torch right now because you don't want to burn the paper. The paper will wrinkle from the heat because it is plastic. So the only thing that I'm going to do is very, 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 very lightly from a distance swipe to make sure that there's no bubbles. Really just staying in the center. I don't want to go near the paper. So that's why you can't really reheat the edges to spread it out. I would just add more if you need a little bit more somewhere. Okay, now I'm going to let that cool. These only take about 5 minutes or so to cool because they're so thin. Now, we do want to have these at an angle, right? We don't just want flat butterflies, we want them to have an angle. But I actually let these cool all the way. Then I will go back and reheat the center and bend them up. So if you were to bend them up now, it's liquid, right? So it's all going to slump and pool to the center. So I like to let them cool evenly flat. Then I will just lightly kind of animate or activate the center of it and make it liquidy in the center with the torch. And then I will bend it there. Okay, so I'll slide him out of the way and do our next butterfly. Now remember, you can practice these. You can put them underneath. I don't know if the silicone mat is see-through enough. You can put them underneath your silicone mat, or the yellow mats are nice and thin too if you wanted to practice, pushing it onto the edges of one. You can do it on the back as well because it's just going to come off of that clear plastic. So you could do that if you wanted a little bit of practice. I'm going to reheat my Isomalt because it's gotten too thick from sitting here. So I'm going to pop it in for about 15 seconds. Okay, how you guys doing? Anybody making your butterflies? Remember, for anybody who is following along at home or is planning to afterwards, if you make your beautiful sculpture, I'm going to put a post out right after this for you to post pictures, because I know not everybody's friends with each other who's on here. So if you want to see everybody's beautiful creations as you guys make them, and as well if you're making them later, you can go back to the post, and that way we can all see each other's finished products. So make sure after you are finished to go ahead and go on my Facebook page. It's just under my name here, Sidney Galpern. If you're on Instagram, there's a link in my bio. But make sure that you go on there and post your picture in the comments, because I would love to see everything. Alright, so I just took my Isomalt out of the microwave. You see it's back to a boil, so I'm letting it cool down again. Just going to go through the comments here. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, it feels like my flex form pieces are starting to cool. I'm using a tool just to tap them, not your finger. Don't poke at your pieces, just in case they were still hot. You don't want to use your finger, but you can use a toothpick and stuff to kind of test how they're doing. Alright, looks like my Isomalt's almost ready.
Sidney, if you practice on the mat, Kelly would like to know, will it melt it?
As long as you put the butterfly underneath, it should be fine. It has to be a silicone mat, so either the Silpat mat here or the silicone baking mats, the thin yellow ones that we use for pulling and things like that. That's going to be best.
But you can pour it out somewhere, right? You could just practice like freeform?
You could practice freeform too, yeah, definitely. If you just want to practice moving it around and trying to get it into a shape. Okay, so my Isomalt is calmed down now. So this one I'm going to do in halves just because I've done a lot of these, so I can kind of go a little quicker. But feel free to break it into 4 sections if you would rather. I'm kind of mimicking the shape of the butterfly, so I'm not just doing one big circle. I'm guiding it a little bit. I want to make sure that I'm always pouring, though, from the center and letting it run out, rather than pouring in little strings and then letting them connect together, because that's how you get air pockets. So you want to kind of pour from one section or one blob and let it run itself out. Okay. So I'm just spreading this out. You can see the Isomalt kind of pulls back at the edge. It wants to be together. It doesn't want to run all over the place. So sometimes you got to push it past the edge a little bit, and then it will pop backwards and it'll kind of line itself up. Okay, there's one half. You can already see that pattern of the mat see-through. And pour a little bit more. Let them fuse in the center there. Alright. And you you can do all sorts of designs like this. I have like a peacock feather that I do like this. I'll kind of make the edges wispy. We have geodes, which of course have rough edges, so you don't even have to be too careful with those. Alright. And just finish this top edge here. I'm going to go back and pour just a little bit for his head, just like I did with the big butterfly. And that will be perfect. I apologize, there's a big truck going by, so if you guys hear a weird noise, that's all it is. Okay. I'm going to lightly torch that just to make sure there's no surface bubbles. And then I will let that one cool too. So our other butterfly is probably cool enough to take off. So I'm just going to slide this guy out of the way so I don't touch him. Okay, test with your clean tool, okay, or a clean toothpick, not with your finger, just in case. Make sure you can't make a dent in it and it's nice and solid. Okay, then I'm just going to pick this up and I'm going to peel away the plastic. And you see, it just falls right off. Okay, I like to use a brush just because sometimes you get some little edges of paper that haven't brushed off. So I'm just going to use kind of a flat brush, or you could use a puffy brush. And I just brush those excess pieces away, get them out of the way so they're not going everywhere.
Sidney, Christina Rideau would like to know, can you use metallic tools for spreading the Isomalt?
Hi, Christina. Yes, you can. You just have to make sure that you wash them really well in between because it will stick to it more than the silicone.
And Debbie thought that the truck was Mike's belly growling.
It might be soon. We'll see how long I go.
Love you too, Debbie.
Okay, so see how I just cleaned up those edges? Any little bits of paper should just fall off too. If you had any stragglers, we'll throw that excess away. And then to bend them, all I'm going to do is go back on a silicone mat so that it can take the heat. And I'm going to very lightly torch just down the center. Okay, give that just a minute or so to cool. Not only is the surface cooling off, but it's letting the heat sink in all the way. The torch only heats the surface, remember? So the surface may be bendable, but the center isn't yet. So it's just soaking all of that heat in. And now I can test it. If you didn't torch enough, you can do a little bit more. But at this point, it should be nice and flexible. I can choose however I want it to sit. And then I'm just going to hold it. I'm going to use my little fan, but you can just hold it or set it in a form for a couple minutes and let it cool. Sometimes you get, I don't know if you guys can see it, but sometimes you get little stretch marks in the center, little wrinkles. That's just from the Isomalt bending. And we can get rid of those, but we want to torch them after the whole thing is cool. Because right now, if I torched over it again, he would just fall flat again. But if I get, so the center of it, the core of it is cool and solid, then when I torch the outside just very, very lightly, it won't affect the shape. It only melts the surface.
So does this cool?
Yes, yeah, they're cool.
It's warm.
It is warm in here,
Do
yeah.
you want the air down?
No, it's okay. Okay, so you can see that's already solid. I'm going to test my other butterfly. He probably still needs a minute. No, he is ready to come out. Okay. So the same thing, and you see that beautiful transparent finish. Just going to brush those edges of paper off. It's super nice because you don't have to trim it out. You don't have to cut it. You don't need a form or a cutter or anything. It just kind of does it for you. Alright, and then the same thing. I'm going to lightly torch the center of my little butterfly. And then this guy, I'll hold up so maybe you guys can see the little wrinkles. I'm just going to torch the center a little bit over here. Not holding it. Okay, set it down. I'm going to torch that, and then I just want to hold him back into place for a second to make sure he doesn't fall, or you can put him back in his former, but it's super, super smooth and perfect now. So I'm just going to let him cool for a second. And I'll bend this guy before he cools back down. There we go. You could also pour the halves and not connect them together, or right now while it's soft you could cut them apart with scissors, and that would make it so that you have two separate wings. So if you wanted to put butterfly wings on something, you absolutely could do that. If you were making like a fairy, or I've seen like baby shower cakes where they put little butterfly wings on the sleeping babies, super cute. So if you wanted to make your own bodies out of something else and then put these on, or stack them, or make something kind of whimsical and fantastical.
So somebody's asking, I'm not sure I understand, what plastic are you using? I don't know if she's referring to the sheets.
The sheets are Isomalt transfer sheets, so they are an edible paper, and the mat is a silicone mat. There we go. Alright, so see how I just torched the center of that guy too, and I'm just setting them off to the side. They're kind of sitting on their side, propped up against something, just to make sure that they stay while we take our flex form pieces out. So I'm gonna slide these over, get some room here. I'm gonna pop my Isomalt back in the microwave to start heating it for assembling. So I'm just going to zap it back in there, and then again test your flex form pieces with a tool, not with your finger, to make sure that they are nice and solid. These you do not want to assemble until they are completely solid. There shouldn't be any bend or any warmth left to them, because you don't want them to fall over. That's very, very important with structure and stability of Isomalt, is to make sure that they are going to be super, super strong. So once they feel like they are nice and solid, I can just remove my flex forms. And those are completely reusable, so you can wash them, use them again. They also work with chocolate, which is great. Okay, just like that. And then I like to peel the mat away from the piece, because the mat is flexible where the piece is not. So I'm just going to flip the whole thing over. Just like with the transfer sheet, you just peel that off. Okay, and then you can see that we have a couple little rough edges that I'll smooth, and then we also have to take those inserts out. So all I'm going to do is flip him over, and I'm just going to roll my finger over the inserts, and they just pop right out. Beautiful. Isn't that cool? Alright, so to clean up those edges, all I'm going to do is pass over them very, very lightly with the torch, and then I may also trim them. We'll have to see if it disappears on its own or not, but so you can see those right now. I'm just going to torch, and they should just smooth themselves over. Okay, so you don't want to pick it up until it's cool, but you see how it started to smooth. I do have kind of another little piece there that didn't melt in, so while it's still warm right now, I'm going to just snip that off, and you see how it just goes perfect. Torch over that little cut spot really quick.
Somebody asked, is the baking mat that the crescent was on reusable?
Yes, this is a coated Teflon sheet, so you can reuse it as many times as you want. You just wash it off and reuse it.
Even Gorilla Glue won't stick to it.
Yeah, nothing sticks to it. Okay, there is that piece, and then we're going to do the same thing with our flex form piece here. So I'm just going to flex. So I'm kind of using my thumbs to pull outward and my fingers underneath to push upwards until I can see that it pops out.
And Sydney, Kelly would like to know if the inserts are reusable.
Yes, they are. They're silicone, so you just wash them off and they are ready to go. Okay, there is my beautiful crystal clear disc. If it doesn't pop out that easily, if you didn't use quite enough grease, just lightly heat the bottom, underneath, and the sides a little bit with the torch. And then using gloves or oven mitts or something to protect your hands, because the metal will be hot, you can pop it out a little easier once it's warm. So I'm just wiping the excess oil off of the piece that was in the form. Alright, before we put this piece together, I want to paint the edges of our butterflies really quick. You could also do it once you put it together. Actually, let's clear away some of this texture first so this has time to cool. So what we're going to do is, you can see this looks really, really pretty as it is, but it has a little bit of that matte texture. It has like a woven texture from the gold mat that it was sitting on, and I have a couple little bubbles over here. So we're going to get rid of that first. So I'm going to lay it on my silicone mat. I'm going to grab my torch, and I'm just going to torch away that detail. Now we want to be very, very careful not to melt away the detail of the flowers, so we don't want to go anywhere near those. We just want to melt away the surface of the kind of flat areas. So I'm going to do one section so you can see the difference. So just keep moving. The key to the torch is to always keep moving, and that way nothing will melt or burn. Same thing with the mat. And now can you guys see the difference on the clear section compared to the textured area. The texture doesn't look bad. I mean, it has kind of a cool effect, but if you want those crystal clear pieces, you got to make sure to torch away all of that texture. So I'm just going to turn my torch down really low so I can kind of sneak around those flowers and do the entire thing. I don't have to do that on the base because that one was not against anything that had texture, right? It was just in a nice smooth metal pan, so it didn't have any texture to pick up. So I'm going to let that cool off for a little while, so we'll just slide him over there while we finish our butterflies off now that they're cool. Okay, I'm going to grab a paper towel here to work on. And we're going to do a little painting. I think these are really, really pretty just how they are right now. But to clean up and to just kind of make the edges nice and perfect, I like to do just a black border around the whole thing. Now, just like I just did with the flex form, if you have any pieces that kind of overflowed or any sections that you want to clean up, you can very lightly torch the edges of the whole piece. You can trim with scissors after you torch if you want to. It's just going to make it super, super easy to clean up. I think that these look pretty good, so I'm not going to do any torching on them, but basically you would just very lightly, I can show you on this side, if you guys want to see how I would do it, set it down, don't hold it and torch it, and then just very lightly smooth those edges. Try to torch from the Isomalt side, not from the paper, so that you don't burn the paper, and it will just smooth itself over, or after about 10 seconds after you torch, you can go back and trim any of those bigger pieces. You can also go back with like a tool. When it's warm, it's a little bit too cool right now, but if I went and torched it again, you could push in some of the indents and kind of reshape it. So if you lost some of that shape, you can absolutely kind of tweak it and shape it back into how you want it to look. Alright, so the paint that we are using is Artisan Accents gel color mixed with a little bit of their dilution solution, which is basically just turns their gels into airbrush colors, but I really like it for hand painting because it gives it a nice texture. So I'm just going to put a little bit of that into a cup. I don't want to add too much of the dilution solution because I want it to not be diluted, the color. I just want the texture to be diluted, so I'm just going to add a drop or two so that it's more paintable. And then I'm just going to use a little tiny flat brush so that I can get some really nice edges on there. Okay, so I'm going to take my brush, the flat edge kind of parallel with the edge of the butterfly, and I'm just going to paint a nice little edging on there. Depending on your style, you can be a little rougher, you can be a little bit more perfect. It's up to you how long you spend on this, but I'm just going to do a little finishing touch. Okay, it's nature, remember, so it's not going to be completely perfect. Okay, so I'm just angling my brush more towards the surface of the Isomalt, and then just adding that thin edge. I'm just doing it very, very quickly here to show you guys the difference that it makes.
Can you use airbrush colors?
Yes, you can. I like gel colors because they're a little thicker, but you absolutely can use airbrush colors. You can hand paint them or you can airbrush them right on. Depending on the effect I'm going for, I'll use either airbrush colors or gel colors. Gels are just more like an acrylic, where airbrush is more like a watercolor effect.
And what about powdered colors?
Yes, you can mix powdered colors in with alcohol or with piping gel, depending on what thickness you would like them to be to paint on top as well. Pretty much anything sticky sticks to them, so. Alright, so you can see, now that I have that edge, it just kind of pulls, I think, the whole thing together and makes it look a little bit more finished. So I'm just going to do a very, very quick edge on my butterfly while my crescent is cooling. Alright. And then remember, when you glaze these, like we're going to spray them with the clear edible glaze at the end, it will lock this paint in so that it doesn't smear or smudge. So you can glaze these individually if you want to after you painted them and then attach them on, or you can go ahead and attach them before you glaze. It's up to you. Depends on how much you are going to have to handle them. Now, if you wanted to use these by themselves and you just wanted to put them, I mean, obviously they'd go great just in the top of a cupcake with some icing on it. But you can also attach these right onto a cake. So to put them on a fondant covered cake, you can just use a little bit of liquid Isomalt as a glue and it will stick right on. You can also, if you want to put a support in them, you can go ahead and dip and stick a toothpick or a wire. Let's see. Or, yeah, a piece of pasta. Here, I'll just use my tool. A piece of uncooked spaghetti. You dip it in Isomalt, stick it to the back, and let it cool, and then you have like a prong, essentially, if this was a toothpick or a wire or whatever you wanted to use, that could insert into the cake. So if you wanted to put it on something more like buttercream on the side that you were worried about it sliding down, you could add kind of a anchor point or an attachment point here if you wanted to. But if it's on the fondant, I would just attach it right onto the fondant with Isomalt.
Addie asks, how else can you get the circle out of the pan?
Hi, Addie. If it's sticking and doesn't want to come out, just torch the back. So kind of flip the whole thing over with the Isomalt still in it. You can heat the whole thing with the torch, set it down on the mat, heat the whole thing a little bit, and see with gloves or oven mitts, push that out and see if that helps. It just may not have been quite enough grease, and so it's not slipping out as easily.
Also, somebody asks, can you paint in the paper in the paper side?
Absolutely. If you paint on the paper before you pour the Isomalt, it will dissolve from water. But now that it's bonded with the Isomalt, you have a little bit more. It's better to use dusts than paper or than liquids because it still could smudge the design a little bit. So that's why I generally paint on the Isomalt side.
Sidney, does the dilution solution only work with Artisan Accents colors or any gel color?
No, it works with any gel color. I love it. It gives it almost like a creamy sort of feel for hand painting, and it works really good for airbrushing too. Okay, so putting the whole thing together, what I want to do first with our base is burn off the excess oil with the torch. Any oil is going to prevent your Isomalt from really doing anything, from pulling, from putting together, from pouring, so we want to make sure that we burn that off so that our crescent is going to stick really strong. So I'm just going to burn that away. You don't have to get the surface boiling or melted or anything. You're just doing a light kind of overall torching to the whole thing just to burn away that glaze. I'm going to grab my Isomalt back here. Okay, so it's nice and liquidy so I can attach my pieces together. All right.
Sidney, how much time do you think you have because the Instagram is 1 hour?
I just have to put this together, so it shouldn't be more than maybe about 5 minutes.
Do you want to stop it now and then do it?
Yeah, I'm going to stop it.
Okay.
And then it'll come back on in like less than a minute.
Okay, anyone watching on Instagram, refresh and come back on in just a minute. We just don't want it to cut you guys off. That'll actually work out for you guys on Facebook. I want to reheat this just a little bit so that it's nice and strong. So I'm going to pop my Isomalt back in, and you can do the same if you're following along. Make sure it's super liquidy because thick Isomalt is not going to adhere as well.
Okay, we are back.
Hi, Instagram. Welcome back.
Nobody's on yet, but they'll be coming.
Okay. All right. It doesn't have to be boiling, bubbling. It just needs to be a little bit more liquidy than it was before. So I just popped my Isomalt back into the microwave for Instagram while you guys were gone. I just reheated it to get it a little hotter. So remember, when attaching pieces together, warm to warm sticks better than warm to cool. So depending on how heavy your pieces are, you may want to torch both pieces as well as adding glue. Now I use the two kind of depending on what I'm doing. So sometimes I'll torch and stick pieces together, just the torch, if the piece is going to be lightweight, because the torch just adds a little bit of glue, it just heats the surface. So if it's lightweight, you can do that. But with big structure pieces like this, I want to use extra glue. I want to use liquid Isomalt, so it's just the same Isomalt we poured before. I want to use that as a glue, and that's going to adhere the pieces together. But the first step is always planning, because once you attach Isomalt together, there's no going back. It's stuck, which is awesome because it's strong, but you just want to make sure that your pieces are in the right place first. So figure out where everything's going to sit.
Debbie says, look how clear that is.
Isn't that clear? I love it. All right, so you want to make sure your balance is good. You don't want it to be too balancing on the very tip because that's not going to hold. You want it to be more on this flat side here. You don't want it to be angling back too much because then it's going to be top heavy and the weight will be pulling it back. You want to find like a nice kind of center of balance here in the middle. The edge is not, or the point is not quite touching the bottom to still give it that very gravity-defying look. But I have a good, at least an inch or so here that is going to be attached and nice and flat.
If it does go over, though, they can reattach it, right?
Absolutely, yeah. If it does kind of start to fall down or if it pops off, you can just reattach it. So like I said, warm to warm sticks better, so I am going to heat I'm gonna turn this down a little bit because that's a little intense. I'm just gonna heat until it's nice and bubbling where I want that piece to sit. And I'm also gonna heat on the bottom to get that warm as well. That's what I do for big heavy pieces like this. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to pour out, because I can't really dip this piece into the bowl, I'm gonna pour out just a little, like a trench of glue. Just a line of it to dip. Now when I'm dipping, I don't just want to dunk it straight in because then you'll get glue on the front. I'm going to angle the front up and kind of push backwards and catch the glue on the back edge. Try not to touch it down to the mat because it's going to grab it. And very, very quickly, making sure it's centered, attach. Okay, and we're just going to hold that for a second. I'm going to use my fan. You don't have to. You can just hold it or set it up against something. Make sure, I'm looking at this from the front, right? Make sure that you turn the whole thing, or you actually physically go around the table and look at it from this angle as well so that you know it's not going forward or backwards. You guys can probably tell really good because you're looking from above. The more angled it is right now, the more likely that the whole piece is going to fall over that way in the future because you're automatically pulling the gravity kind of in a certain direction. So the more centered and the more flat you can have the piece to start with will be a more kind of balanced piece. Okay.
Another set of eyes helps.
Yes, definitely another set of eyes helps. So if you have somebody you can have come in for just a second and
I'm sorry, we're
make sure.
when you came.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no. Only if the people already live in your house.
Put it towards you.
All right. So I'm just going to let this cool for a minute. You don't want to take this away, take your hand or your support away too soon because that is definitely going to kind of tricks you. So the outside will seem pretty solid, but the center is still warm and liquidy and soft. And then it kind of pulls itself over.
And make sure you stay to the end because Sidney has some announcements.
Yes, we are almost done here. I'm just going to put my butterflies on.
Brooke says it's magical.
Thanks, Brooke. Okay, perfect. So make sure there is no give to this at all. You cannot bend it or move it at all. Now the butterflies I am just going to torch because they are so lightweight. They're like a fraction of an ounce of Isomalt. So I am just going to torch those to put them on. You can put them wherever you'd like, but I like to, as a rule with structures, bigger things are going to be heavier visually, so they go towards the bottom. But of course you can play with that if you want to switch it up a little bit. So I'm just going to not torch the butterfly because remember there's paper under there. Torch a little bit on the structure. Stick it on. And then torch a little bit more. Stick this guy on. And remember our last step is going to be glazing. So we use the clear edible glaze spray. Where did I set it here? Clear edible glaze spray on all of our finished pieces, and that will make sure that the moisture and the condensation does not affect your sculpture. It will kind of create a barrier and make sure nothing gets sticky or cloudy. So I move all of my tools away, I cover my table, or I go to a different place if possible, completely cover it up because the glaze does not like to come off of things. So make sure that you are away from any silicone, any tools that you like, any phones, any watches. All right, and there we go. I'm going to tip this back so you can see it, but I'm going to change the camera in just a second so that I can hold it up and you guys can see. But here is our finished piece. Ta-da!
Brooke is worried that hers won't turn out as pretty as yours, but I think it will.
It absolutely will. The beauty of these is they don't all have to be the same. You could do these different shapes. Remember, butterflies are nature, so they don't have to be perfect, but of course, practice makes perfect. The only way that you're going to get better and better at it is to do it. So best part about Isomalt is it's remeltable. You can't remelt the butterflies just because of the paper, but all of these other pieces you can remelt. So if you want to make structures over and over and over, you can go ahead and just not glaze them and just remelt them over and over for practice. That's what's awesome about Isomalt is there's no waste. Even this little bit of glue that's cooled here now on the mat, I can just take that, remelt it.
Sue would like to know, how do you get the Isomalt out of a glass bowl?
You want to soak it in water, and Isomalt is water soluble, so it will dissolve. Okay, I'm just going to switch my camera up here really quick. All right. how you guys doing?
Addie, did you get your thing out?
Angle this just.
Can you remelt it if it's been glazed?
You can, but I don't really recommend it. It may be okay once to not, I wouldn't glaze melt, just for poured pieces, but I wouldn't do anything structurally with them. It would be for like little brooches or things that don't have to hold themselves up, not for pulling or blowing, but if you absolutely have to for just little poured decorations, it probably would work.
Especially after a good month.
Yeah, the glaze is kind of gone, so if you can burn the glaze off too before you melt it down, that might help as well so it doesn't mix in. Yes, let me hold up my sculpture here so you guys can see it at a little bit better angle. Ta-da! I'm going to hold it up a little bit higher so that Instagram can see it. Alright, so if you guys have any questions, write in the chat. There's a little bit of a delay, so while we're waiting for any last minute questions, I want to tell you guys about a couple upcoming lives that we have. We wrote them all down so I wouldn't forget anything, but basically, we have a bunch of lives that are coming up. I'm doing some, and then there's also some other awesome artists who are using Simi Isomalt, which I'm so excited to watch and to participate and follow along. So we have on Tuesday, April 28th at 2 p.m. EST, Chef Vanessa Greeley, who is awesome, is going to be doing a demonstration on the Icing Images Facebook, who have been doing a whole bunch of live streams, and they're really, really awesome. So make sure you go and check out their schedule. But she's going to be doing some Isomalt lollipop shakers. So they're actually lollipops that shake just like the cookies, that are so cool, so make sure you go and watch that. And then on Icing Images as well, on Thursday, April 30th at 2 p.m. is going to be Kim Simons doing her incredible Lotus. It's a beautiful glass kind of sculpture that she's going to be painting, and it's all kind of encased in Isomalt, so I'm super, super excited about that one. And so make sure that you go on Icing Images page to check out those. And then also, let's see, I have a demonstration that's going to be on Friday, May 1st in the Global Isolation Room for their cookie day. I'm going to be doing some more shaker cookies. It's going to be kind of a floral, sort of flower crown inspired wreath shaker cookie with some beautiful pastel flowers. That's going to be perfect for kind of like a springy theme, kind of a Mother's Day theme. And then I am going to also have a huge announcement on Sunday that I cannot talk about right now, but on Sunday I'm going to be announcing it. I'm kind of bursting. I want to tell you guys so badly, but it's very, very exciting, and I hope you guys will be excited too. So make sure that you check out my Facebook and my Instagram pages for all of that information on Sunday. I will be posting about that. And then I also made my next Playdate project. I was playing around with it last night, and what I think that we're going to do is, I think you guys are ready. We've done a bunch of these so far now. We are going to bring in some pulling. So the next Simi Isomalt Playdate is going to involve pulling and hand sculpting. We are going to have a kit for it as well. I'm going to post all of the details about this piece tomorrow, so you guys are going to get the first sneak peek here. I have my piece over here that I want to show you. So this is what we are making. This is going to be a beautiful watercolor abstract flower. I'm going to kind of pull it closer so you can see the painting here. This is all hand sculpted using a brand new kind of form system that I'm going to announce tomorrow. So these are inspired. I did a class in Corning at the Corning Glass Museum a couple of years ago, and we made these beautiful pulled glass kind of flowers, and so I've been really, really wanting to do something inspired by them because I really enjoyed it. So this is what we are going to be doing. We're going to do a brand new painting technique, so you can see that beautiful watercolor splatter, and we're going to be making these flowers. I have another little one here too I can show you guys. So that is what we're going to be doing next time. It's going to be on the Friday before Mother's Day, so this would be perfect for Mother's Day kind of gifts or pieces or pictures that you can send to them and say Happy Mother's Day if you can't see them right now, but I definitely hope that you will join me for that. Like I said, it's going to be pulling this time, so it's not just pouring, it's going to be hand sculpting, it's going to be kind of making our flowers exactly different for every artist, and you can do different painting colors and techniques and stuff like that. So make sure that you check out my Instagram and my Facebook tomorrow. Did anybody have any last minute questions before we go?
Oh, Jackie was asking about the turtle with the flowers that Kim's doing. That's going to be part of her series, right?
Yes. Kim Simons posted, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. She posted this beautiful turtle that she is doing, and it has flowers encased in the Isomalt turtle in his shell, and it is so beautiful. I don't believe she's announced that yet, but she is going to be making an online tutorial in her series of tutorials that she's coming out with, so make sure that you check her out for that, because it's going to be awesome. Awesome. The kits are not available yet for this next class, but they will be tomorrow, I believe. We're going to put all the information up. So you can put post notifications on my page if you want to. Just go to my profile, and where it says friends, you can turn on notifications for when I post if you want to see it as soon as I do the piece, or if you want a reminder when I go live too.
And we'll post it on your website.
Yes, I will post it on the website, and I will have all the info. If you guys have any questions, again, you're welcome to comment them here, and I'll come back and check them out at later times. But if you want to direct message me, make sure definitely do. But I'm going to post in just a couple minutes on my Facebook page, so Instagram, go to my Facebook page. Any pieces that you guys made here from this live stream, make sure you go and comment pictures of them, because I would love to see all of your beautiful pieces. And thank you guys so much. I hope you are staying safe, staying healthy. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!
Bye!